So when creating the game's lore and world, we were very inspired by kind of an alternate universe, World War III. Our game takes place in 1997. The nuclear war in our world happened back at the Cuba crisis. And after a long nuclear winter, this magical fruit starts to appear that has almost infinite power applications.
So how would the world change with that? How would different factions rise up from the ashes and take over this planet and try to create some new kind of order?
It's as if the seeds were there all along, and the fallout was all they needed to grow.
We were thinking, in this world where most of Eastern Europe have been hit the hardest by the nuclear war, how would a new unified faction appear from this? That kind of saw Tempest as the lost souls of all of our dead ancestors.
The Tempest Dynasty is a lot more about, with this new resource that we have in the game, Tempest, how can we use this to restoring glory and get back in power?
There's a question about what my favorite faction is. And as a game designer, that's really hard. It's like asking which of your children is your favorite. You might have one, but you're not supposed to say anything, right?
Oh, so my favorite faction out of the three, it has been shifting a lot. When I first joined the project, GDF, I thought it was really cool. But over time, and especially over the last year, Dynasty has really grown on me.
They have a really good resource system. Like, for example, your Tempest Refiner is not just a building, it's an actual mobile unit that you can kind of carry out and put across the entire level.
They play into a really cool archetype of being very mobile, of being all over the map, like really high risk, high reward. No defense, max offense, and then just hope that you can kill the enemy before they kill you. I think they're just so much fun to play.
Commander, good of you to join us. Gotta say, your file was a pretty impressive read.
The reason for them to kind of look and feel the way they do, for example, when you look at a faction like GDF, you're trying to establish a new kind of order and figure out, okay, how do we rebuild everything in a more fast and utilitarian approach? Everything is hard surfaced, everything is sharp. It's sheet metal that is bent into shape, optimized as much as possible.
You know, they also see the value of Tempest, and we turned them kind of into almost like police state type of faction.
They are more like, protective, so to say. They try to hold the ground. They are trying to save the world, so to say. That's how they present themselves to the public.
They want to control most of the Tempest sites because that's where the money is, but also most of the Tempest sites are in the eastern part of Europe. But the Dynasty want to reclaim what was once theirs, their homeland. So it creates an interesting conflict that we thought was really cool.
We decided early on that the Global Defense Force was really focused on communication and intelligence gathering and keeping tabs on things, like a kind of a surveillance state sort of thing. So that kind of led to the invention of their intel resource and their comms bonus. Those are us trying to translate the sort of benefits that better battlefield communication can have.
We have the intel system, for instance, which empowers the GDF, but also becomes a gameplay challenge for them sometimes, that they need to gather two resources rather than just the Tempest.
But it's very much kind of, if you're used to your classic RTS Command and Conquer style experience, that is where you'll probably feel at least a little bit more at home at the beginning.
And I don't know if we should go into the secret one.
Oh, so we can't tell about Vetti, right?
Oh yeah, we can talk about Vetti. For Vetti, it has been a lot more about sitting and scheming and waiting for the right time to strike. They know a lot more than anyone else does about this Tempest and this world, because they've always been there.
And there, of course, is a bit more to do with the Tempest at large and how they harnesses the Tempest to become more like one with it.
Vetti, they change everything for everyone.
Vetti was one of the hardest factions to really get right for us. There's a lot of story rewrites depending on what the law was initially. Were they part of Tempest? Are they Tempest themselves? Are they proto-humans? Are they aliens? And how does this all work together with the other factions fighting over this resource?
Of course, in a game like this, you need a resource to fight over. That's kind of the thing, in Dune, it's the spice. In Command & Conquer, it's Tiberium. Here, it's Tempest. But Tempest has a much deeper-rooted secret. And we wanted to make sure that when we introduce the player to what is the secret behind Tempest and who were on this planet before we came here. That we bring in that fantastical element together with this more rooted world. And we really like that combination of things.
You have your orders, Commander. Let's get this done.
One of the other design pillars was the rule of cool. We wanted to make sure that we designed the game around elements that, first of all, were pretty badass, and function came secondary.
The approach in designing units or anything that goes with a faction is like, I get a brief from the team, and I always kind of ask questions like, what's the functionality, the ability? And then from that point, we will kind of have like a brainstorm. For example, the redesign of Warden, it was inspired by Scarab. And in the beginning, I wanted to make like a round design, but then the design team was like, okay, we're not gonna go on that side, so let's push to more angular. So I move and push to that direction. It helps a lot with the team, like this back and forth feedback.
They had to look semi-realistic, but we wanted to make sure that there was always something that looked really badass and really cool, and it doesn't always have to make 100% sense.
So we really went in depth and we did a cyclical process of saying this is what would happen in the lore and this is what we want to happen in the gameplay to achieve a synthesis of how the game plays out and why the factions feel different.
We try to look for different materials. Of course, we want to make all the units look like it's from the same faction, but we hand paint pretty much all of the units with the same kind of material language through them all, but trying to make them unique in that sense.
Yeah, that was the tricky part, to make each faction to be distinct. So we kind of have to play around a bit of the chunkiness of each infantry or vehicles or structures. We try to implement those color keys so that even by far you know that, oh, it's GDF or it's Dynasty or Vetti.
I mean, it's everything. Like, it's the UI as well. When you start a campaign, it's different. The way characters speak to you if you're playing Dynasty versus the way they speak if you're playing DDF. It's just all of these small things that come together to set like a completely distinct vibe for each faction.
My personal favorite unit is probably the Dynasty Matchstick. Creating it was really fun. It has some weird shapes to it that was fun to figure out. Also, it just turned out to be a really cool design. One that really stands out to me as also being Dynasty in of itself.
My favorite structure in the game is the Vetti Temple. I made it quite menacing in a way that is still like a circular build. And for vehicles, Warden. I'm so proud of that Warden.